Welcome to the Emerald City Video Podcast. I'm Russ, and that's Zach.
Hello.
And hello and welcome to the Emerald City Video Podcast. I'm Russ, and Zach is drinking.
And I'm taking a sip of water right when we open, which is always the best way to do things. So, yes, hello.
Uh, we want to talk about the Superman trailer because
Yes.
the like I've seen it variously referred to as the third trailer, the final trailer, but it's the first
Mhm.
full trailer for the movie that has come out. Like
Yeah.
both of the previous two trailers were teasers to one extent or another.
Yeah.
Even this one honestly doesn't give you a ton of plot. Which I have some thoughts on probably why that is. But what's your kind of knee-jerk reaction to it?
I I was I don't know why I'm a little emotional lately. I don't know what's going on. I'm 43, maybe I'm hitting whatever. I'm not going to do the bad. I'm trying to remember where the joke came from about menopause, as in men anyway. But
Yeah,
I'm like super like I've been watching like there's been a couple I've been watching Andor and like basically every episode openly weeping because
mm,
that show was designed in a lab for me to
you're right.
like care about Star first off to revitalize my love of Star Wars that I had when I was like 7 years old. And this is it's about revolution. It's like I said, if you know me, you would go be like, well, of course Zach is like the biggest Andor fan, which no spoilers. I still have the last three episodes to watch. But I'm being on the internet, existing on the internet, especially within my my friends and stuff like that who all love this show as well. It like has been very difficult because I'm just like somebody mentions and nope, nope, nope. But no,
Yeah,
I was like I don't know what that chord hit the Superman kind of like the and I just was like sobbing, which
yeah, I was
like I should
a little
have done one of
emotional.
those trailer react things because that would have been like that would have gone
Yeah, right.
completely viral. Being like, oh, this, yeah, okay. Like, but yeah,
Yeah. Of course, the problem is you never know if that's actually going to happen when you sit down to watch something.
yes, yeah,
I guess reactor and you just record every single time you watch anything for the first time. It works.
yeah, yeah,
Uh, but
yeah. No.
uh,
I
I mean, I
actually,
really
I'm
dug it.
sorry, but I actually, like, literally, I saw the thumbnail and it started to like autoplay somewhere, and I immediately started having the reaction again. And I'm like, what is wrong with me? I need therapy. Like, this is beyond being like, I'm not even, you know me. I'm like, I'm a big Superman fan in the way that, like, I think a lot of people are. Like, but I'm like, I'm a more of a, always been a Batman fan, which most Batman trailers don't really get emotional. They're very dark and moody, at least of the last, 20 years. And but yeah, no, that holy shit. Like Gunn just knows what he's fucking doing. Especially the dog.
Yeah, yeah, and I have something. I'm going to touch on it at the very end because it's potentially spoilery. It's certainly just me drawing conclusions.
Yeah.
But the conclusions I'm drawing are so very James Gunn that I feel like I'm probably on the money, and it's probably going to be a big emotional moment in the movie.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, obviously, I've always been a Superman guy. I've read comics since I was very very little, but I really got into comics and became a monthly like a regular to the comic shop kind of person
Mhm.
after the death of Superman.
Yeah.
Uh, and then I continued to read those books for a decade and have always continued to love the character, even when I'm not reading the books monthly.
Yeah.
Um, uh, by the way, randomly, but shout out Absolute Superman right now, which
Mhm.
is like it's really hard to explain what the absolute line is, but the very short version is it's like DC's Ultimate Universe. It's like a second continuity that they're running as a series of ongoing series. Um, but the Superman book is much darker than you necessarily think of Superman, but it still has the core of the character. And the issue that came out is really really good. It introduces that universe's version of Brainiac, and it's like a John Carpenter horror movie. Really, really good. All the Absolute books, honestly, have been pretty good so far. I haven't read Green Lantern or Flash yet, but Absolute Martian Manhunter is comics I've read in a really long time. um, and has this great thing that only works in comics, which is something that I love, is when you have like a narrative device that only works in your one particular medium. And no, the very last page of the first issue, where they kind of cement what the origin story is.
Yeah.
If you hold
Nice.
it up, you can see the other side of the page, and on the other side of the page is art that shows you what's happening.
Oh, that's
And
awesome.
so you get like this ghostly vision of, yeah, so
Yeah.
good and such a
Yeah.
clever idea. And like the rest of the book is very good too. That's just the easiest. It's kind of like saying I love Pasture because of VFX Car on Fire. There's a lot of people
Yeah,
who love
yeah,
Velocipaster,
yeah.
but that one is an easy thing to explain, you know?
That seems like such a obvious thing. I don't think I've ever even heard of that like usage in a comic book. Like maybe in like a Mad magazine or something
Yeah, I've
like that,
never.
but like that's wild
I was
because
gonna. That's the thing. Everybody kind of compared it to the fold-in puzzles from Mad,
yeah,
and I'm sure people have done it before. Indie people have done it before.
yeah,
Obviously, like it's a byproduct of modern printing because you couldn't have done that on newsprint because just the muddy quality
yeah, yeah.
of the colors on both sides and how dark it had to be and all that kind of stuff wouldn't have really worked. But but yeah, I'm sure somebody's done it, but I've never seen it. Certainly not like
So fucking
as a
cool.
big story moment in like a mainstream big comic, but it's super cool.
Yeah.
Um, but in any event, so like I'm a big Superman guy, and I love, and I have the same thing. I get like not irrationally, but like if used properly, the John Williams theme is
Yeah.
incredibly emotionally effective.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because history and baggage with it and stuff. And so like I I remember at the time, I think I liked the way it was used in Whedon's cut of Justice League, although I did even at the time be like, felt kind of pointless to have, because like the same way they used the Burton Batman theme, and then they used the John Williams, Elfman Batman theme, if I'm saying John Williams, but
Yeah.
they used the Elfman Batman, and then they used the Williams. Both those were just like needle drops to be, aha, remember
Yeah.
there's a thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think
Yeah. And it's
but I
still
think
get
in the moment I liked it.
yeah.
Um, in hindsight, I'm like, it's kind of lazy, but but the Williams theme has been deployed really effectively in a few places in the last. Pretty sure they used it in the last scene of Smallville because obviously, um, and then they used it in the last scene of the pilot for Krypton, which I thought was really like it was used in a really cool, creative way because basically you're getting the twist of the story, and the camera pulls up and back like a crane or something, and you
Yeah.
have him standing in the fortress of solitude where there's a big M in the snow on the ground, and
Yeah.
so it starts playing it as you're getting the reveal of the big logo. Um,
Yeah.
but so like certainly I love the idea. I love the idea that not only are they using it, but they're using it in a very particular way. So far, all of the music cues that are like not is the John Williams theme, but like using the electric guitars and like it's being chopped and moved around so that you're not getting the da da da. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so to me, what it feels like, and this is like I think no, it's not the same guy, but it feels like what Ludwig Göransson did Creed,
Yeah.
where all movie we had these cues that reminded you of Gotta Fly Now and like incorporated little pieces of the Bill Conti music, but they weren't actually Rocky theme
Mhm.
until like the 10th round of the big fight. And then
Yeah.
by the
Yeah. I
time you
remember.
get to that song, everybody in the theater is like, fuck yes.
Yeah.
And
No, I remember.
I get the impression that's what Gunn is.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm choking. The
Yeah, so
moment I was
I
just
mean, it's just one of
yeah.
those. Yeah, that's such a fucking well done movie. Like again, uh, legacy sequels are a thorny beast because they've been done so well and so poorly over the years.
Yeah.
But I feel like Creed has to be the best. It is the only time I've ever watched one of those and been like, low key, this might be better than fucking Rocky. Like this might be
Yeah.
better than the one that it's You know what I mean? That it's
It's so yeah,
homaging.
it's
Um,
so individually stands alone too, which is I mean something
yeah,
basically everything we're recording tonight is basically going to be talking about Coogler essentially as well. So
yeah,
at
yeah,
least I will be because I'm the sinners is anyway. But yeah, no, I mean yeah it that it stands alone in a way that like I can't think of another remake. Not about remake, but not
right,
remake,
yeah,
but whatever it would be considered.
yeah.
Not a sequel. It's not
Revival.
really a sequel.
Um,
Don't call it a sequel. And yeah, revival. It stands alone in the way that like nothing kind of I can ever think of that really does. I mean, um,
yeah.
yeah,
Um, and I feel like after Creed, you had a lot of people try that to varying degrees, and
mhm,
it's so hard to do because basically you have to be the kind of filmmaker who's confident in your own shit and isn't
yeah,
falling back on the nostalgia.
yeah, yeah,
Um, which is I think why James Gunn taking it back to the Superman trailer is going to be a good person to be able to kind of reintroduce the Williams theme into Superman
yeah,
because he is very much a guy who understands all of the history but doesn't feel bound by it.
yeah,
Obviously he has all these winks and nods and clever little beats and all these extra characters in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, but like almost none of those characters are exactly like they are in the comics.
yeah.
There's very very few of those characters, and some people get really upset about that. I'm sure people will be real upset with it as it pertains to Superman because Superman is older and has a longer history
Yeah.
and all this kind of thing, and the fans are harder to please in general.
God. Oh
Um,
my God. Between Andor and the Superman trailer and rhetoric that has been on, I'm like, I don't know how you can look like I could totally see you look at this and go, this isn't my Superman, and I'm angry that I didn't get whatever that is, just whether it be the fucking hell, I'm trying to remember the Snyder.
yeah,
Snyder Superman or even whatever versions, Christopher Reeve Superman, whatever. Like that's mine. This isn't mine. And this, I don't know. You can't look at
yeah,
these trailers and these teasers and not like be like, this at least looks really well made. Like this looks like
right,
there's
and
a
that's
competent vision in a way that like again like the Guardians of Galaxies and like you could see everything, which I mean like the one thing that I think that it'll be very interesting to compare this to Man of Steel, because I feel like I don't know enough about the like initial studio kind of machinations that Snyder had to deal with in the first film, but like it that genuinely you look at that film and you're like, this is a Zack Snyder film. Like this is what he would make is super. If I was like envisioning, if I was Zack Snyder, and I was going to make a Superman film, this is Man of Steel is basically it.
yeah,
And like, I don't know how he could possibly. I don't know how um, Gunn could possibly have more control over the film. He is like,
yeah,
like it's like
studio
if
head,
Kevin Feige made a film, like
yeah.
made one of the Marvel films. I'm yeah, I can't say how hopeful I am, but
It's funny because I mean I'm pretty hopeful. I think it's going to be I think the biggest thing for me is that I want the movie to be good, even if it isn't like tailor made for me.
yeah,
Like Guardians 3 was like tailor made for me. Like I watched that movie and I'm just like, this is like such a perfect conclusion to the trilogy. Like and I know some people have some issues with it. Most people dug it, but like it was a movie that just I felt like no, for me personally, it couldn't get any better than what it was. Like it was
yeah,
exactly what I felt like it needed to be. And so like I don't have to have that for Superman. Like I just want the movie to be good. I want it to be competently made.
yeah.
Um, I mean, and again, I loved Man of Steel. Um, I do think it's really interesting. Like, it's unavoidable that the Snyder conversation is going to continue to happen.
Yep.
There's entire groups of people on social media whose
I
entire
mean,
life is
there's an
just,
industry. I mean, there's
um,
like people are making
yeah,
thousands
yeah,
of dollars, maybe I don't know, but if they're still making that level of money, still pumping out
yeah,
YouTube takes about everything. So
yeah. Um,
I'm sure YouTube's servers are like going crazy right now because today,
oh, for sure.
the trailer dropped. So
But so to me, the thing that's interesting is how much of this still reflects a lot of the same ideas and themes that Snyder played with.
Mhm.
And so it it's interesting in a couple of ways. First of all, it's interesting from a filmmaker's perspective because you're like, okay, you're really just taking this on, like, you're going right at it and you're like
Yeah.
allowing the fact that, like, okay, there's going to be these comparisons. I'm going to let it happen. I'm not going to skirt around, you know. But the second thing that I think is even more interesting than the Snyder thing is this notion of Superman as like a political pariah. That
Yeah.
was, it was a huge factor in Batman v Superman. And it seems to be a big piece of at least the first act of this movie. Um,
Yeah.
and that's interesting to me just because I feel like it says something about us as a society
Yeah.
that we simply cannot fathom a world where somebody fundamentally good exists and the
Yeah.
powers that be don't shit on them relentlessly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I mean, it's interesting though because, obviously, I was about to say spoilers. We're talking about a fucking movie trailer.
yeah,
But I mean, the kind of the framework of the trailer is the interview with between him and
mm,
Lois, between Superman and Lois Lane, and which I of course dug because journalists. You were like, and first off, she's actually like, this is one of the things I think that made me like really like, oh fuck, I don't like how excited I am getting for this
mm,
movie. Um, is because she's actually asking like questions that you would ask,
right.
and in a way that you would ask them, and he's getting angry, or maybe not
Right.
angry, but defensive, in a way that like, yeah, he's also right to be defensive, but she's also asking the good questions, which is
Yeah.
nice to see that for the first time in my memory that like she seems to be a good journalist. Because that was
Well, and
one
that's,
thing that like bothered me about the Lois Lane in Snyder's was like, well, she got this one guy killed, and then like that's how
I
you're introduced basically to like, mind you, it was
mean,
a CIA plant and everything like that, but like she was,
yeah,
whatever. But yeah.
canonically, she's always a good journalist in every
Yeah.
version. But I, I like the fact that they're kind of dealing head on with the fact that the relationship that exists between Clark, Lois, and Superman on a professional journalistic level
Mhm.
is deeply unethical and incredibly fraught.
I know. Yeah.
Um, and and so yeah, obviously it's kind of like the joke of why doesn't fucking Thomas Wayne or Bruce Wayne just fund social services and turn Gotham into a utopia? It's
Yeah.
like, well, because that's not what the fuck he is.
Yeah.
But
Mind
but
you,
I do
like
like,
my argument with the Batman thing is that he could do both. Like, even if
yeah,
you fund social services and you do this, there still would be crime to fight. There'd be low level crime and
right,
there'd be high level crime. Like, that's my, like, if I were to ever write a Batman arc or a movie, would be, no, he does fund it, but he actually then goes after like the billionaires. But like,
yeah,
I'm sure that
absolute
um,
Batman. With again the absolute titles that are coming out now, the like rebooty things.
yeah,
Scott Snyder's absolute Batman. He's not rich. Um, and never has been. Like he didn't grow up
mhm,
rich. Um, and so there's a very kind of Robin Hood element to the book that
yeah,
has never really been explored in Batman. So that's kind of interesting. Um, again, without getting too much off into a digression, but like worth
yeah,
checking out for sure.
yeah,
So I really like that. Like again, like the people have made both serious and unserious comments over the years about like Clark interviewing himself or Lois interviewing Superman when she knows he's Clark.
yeah,
And and so uh kind of having a version of that conversation where you're looking at her and how tough she is because it's like it is one of those things where it's like even if he's right, it's like, well, you should have known what you were getting into when you agreed to let Lois interview you.
yeah,
Like, you know what
yeah.
I mean? Um, but
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting and like where, I mean, I don't know how much like I guess we probably don't have that much of an idea, but like idea like where the relationship is when they're doing that. Not even just like, obviously she knows he's Superman, so there's a certain level, but like how far have they been dating for, 6 months, a year or whatever. Um, and to see if like he really expected that, like, because I mean, like, it could just be, I mean, like a flirty thing or something like that. Interview me
Yeah.
or whatever. Yeah, go ahead. But obviously she's like taking it actually seriously, which is like it's a nice relation. I've never been like a huge fan of the kind of relationship Superman TV shows and even the parts of the film because I'm just like I want to see the Superman do the Superman thing. That's my thing. It's kind of like the Spider-Man where it's just like, I wish he would do when he, I don't like the whole, like, one of the reasons I don't really like the Holland arc is that it's like, it's basically just a fucking relationship drama to be able to have, you know, have Tom Holland real life girlfriend. That's not downplaying Zendaya. She's Zendaya. She's fantastic.
Right.
In everything I think except for Spider-Man. I think she's terribly used, and I don't think it's any of her fault. But it's one of those I'm like, I want Spider-Man to do the Spider-Man things. I don't really care too much about this. I don't know who this is for, like
I
yeah,
I do think that like because everything that I've seen so far gives a sense of a kind of disjointed plot. And I think there's two things there. First of all, I think that Gunn is trying to hide as much story as possible
yeah,
because like there's so much you already know about Superman that he can use these kind of iconoclastic moments
yeah,
to like paint a picture with the trailer. But secondly, I kind of think so there's the montages in the Reeve films and in the Brandon Routh movie, and where you get to see him do like a bunch of cool stuff in the space of like 2 or 3 minutes, kind of like
yeah,
the Ghostbusters montage where they first start getting customers.
yeah,
Um, and I think Mike Bailey from Fortress of Baileytude and from Crisis to Crisis is the guy who calls that the super feats montage.
yeah,
And I've always thought like those montages are a really good indicator of the quality of your movie because like seeing the creative ways that you use Superman outside of just punching bad guys,
yeah,
like the cool creative stuff that he does with his powers and all that kind of thing is like it sets the standard for like what he's going to be like when he is fighting bad guys.
yeah,
And so like one of the things that was really interesting about Man of Steel is they didn't really have that. They didn't have a super feats montage per se.
yeah,
They had like a couple of disparate scenes, but the big thing that you would think of as like the midpoint of the movie where you get to see the powers is when he finally learns how to fly, which is
yeah,
for a lot of people, whether or not they liked the movie, almost everybody's favorite scene in the movie, you know?
mhm, yeah,
Um, but so I get the impression from the way this movie's been kind of rolled out that this movie is essentially a feature length, like super feats where the whole thing is going to be like episodic and kind of going from one thing to a thing to a thing to a thing.
yeah,
Certainly, All Star Superman by Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely is a comic that Gunn has referenced relentlessly, and that's exactly what it is. Basically, the idea of All Star Superman is he finds out that he's dying, he has a year left to live, and each issue of this 12 issue miniseries is like a day in the life of Superman for one of the months until he's gone.
yeah,
Um, and so I think that we're going to see a lot of that kind of episodic serial kind of. Um, and if that's the case, it's going to be a really interesting structure, and it'll be interesting to see how it holds together.
yeah,
I imagine like do a real job of that by making Lois your almost like narrator type character, like using the Daily Planet as the structure through which you see all the super feats, while Superman is doing the A plot somewhere else. You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
um, one thing that I think is
Sorry,
while we're
I just always love like the idea of like Gunn who just like has again, Lord only knows how much Zaslav or
yeah,
whoever else is trying to control things, but like has relative control over this. He's like, we're doing a fucking journalism movie.
yeah.
Like it's like, yes, there's these scenes, but that's literally it. But
I
everything else,
mean,
it's like him filing copy, him going through a fact check. I would be like laughing my ass off, and I'd see it three
yeah.
times in theaters.
I
I'd watch the fuck
I
out of an
know
IMAX journalism movie.
we've probably talked about this before, but one of my favorite like tweets that I ever saw, and I cannot remember who did it, but we can probably find it and put it in the notes.
Yeah.
There's somebody who said they wanted like a spy comedy version of Superman,
Yeah.
where it's like because Clark is a reporter, there's like some spy or government agency or something trying to kill him. And the
Yeah.
entire thing is just like a slapstick comedy of like, how is this guy not dying?
Yeah.
Because they don't know that he's Superman.
Yeah.
And I was just like, you could never get away with doing that as a feature film, but I would love to see that as an episode. Like if Superman and Lois had gone a few more years and had some like actual time instead of 10 episode seasons that were all very
Yeah.
plotty.
Yeah.
Like totally could have seen them doing an episode like that and it would have been a banger. Like
I searched for Superman spy comedy, and the top hit was a is a AP reporter, and it's in the new Superman movie. Clark Kent conquers two of journalism's greatest foes: hedge funds and FOIA delays.
there you go. I excuse me. Uh but yeah, so I really like everything that I'm seeing so far. Um I am indifferent for the most part to crypto as a concept. It looks like it's going to be executed in a cool, fun way, and so I'm all for that. But like everybody, like the fact that so much of the marketing has been hinging on crypto so far, I'm just like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's not the kind of thing that like. And again, like part of that is just me and my age and my whatever. I'm a big
Yeah.
fan of like the post-crisis Superman, where he was
Mhm.
the only survivor of Krypton for like 12 years, and then they started
Yeah.
slowly leaking people back into the continuity. Um,
Yeah. I
but
I gotta say the number one thing I am excited about this trailer is crypto. Just
yeah,
because of the like watching it, he looks like a real, you know, what I mean, like he looks and acts like a real dog that has incredible superpowers. And like there's a moment in the trailer when Lex is breaking into the Fortress of Solitude, and he bounces, the dog bounces, doesn't like fly and crash. He like literally just like bounces off of one of the I don't know which I don't know the character's name,
the
but one of
engineer.
the engineer. And it's just like I just was cracking up, and like still today I showed my I I was telling my aunt who hadn't seen any of the trailer, and obviously she's, I don't know why obviously, but she's a huge dog person, that's you know. And I was just like explaining to her the early the teaser where it's
The
just
Take Me
basically
Home teaser.
crypto.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's the, or maybe it's the middle one where he's like crypto is just beating the living shit
Yeah.
out of
Yeah.
Superman
That's
who's
the second.
broken. And I showed her that one, and I'm just like, there is nothing like more, if you have a dog, especially a dog of any size, like if you lay down on the ground, you're gonna get attacked. And I was just like, that I love, like I don't know. I'm like, I'm looking forward to seeing that on a big screen. And if that's kind of it, then I'd be like, okay, I'm a happy boy. So
Gunn, Gunn recently showed a great piece of footage because he like
mhm.
used his dog as like the model
Yeah,
for crypto.
yeah,
And he had this great, I say footage, it's not even behind the scenes footage. It's literally just a like a Instagram post or something
yeah,
that he made at home. He was playing a clip with crypto
yeah,
and the dog was sitting there like growling at it.
yeah,
And apparently like every time the dog sees his like super twin, he
yeah,
gets all worked up and annoyed. And it's like that's really funny.
yeah.
Um,
No, I saw that. I saw that video. It's so good.
um, yeah, the engineer actually, I don't have much in on her as a character. She's from this team called the Authority, which was a Wildstorm team back before Jim sold Wildstorm to DC. Um, they were called Planetary at first, and then they became the Authority, and they were like a gritty 90s version of the Justice League, right
Yeah.
down to the main two guys who are a gay couple, um, are called Apollo and Midnighter, and it's
Mhm.
just Superman and Batman. Like, just that's the intent, what they are. So it's kind of interesting to me that they're already developing a Authority movie, not
Yeah.
just because we're skipping a planetary step, but also because you have Batman and Superman. Like you don't need the
Mhm.
Authority. It's going to be interesting to see how they differentiate them.
Yeah.
In here, it appears that they all work for the government. Um, or at least for Lex. Which, as we know, when you have an egomaniacal billionaire in charge of the government and his personal things are completely intertwined, and there's no way
Yeah.
around it. Um,
It's gonna be that's one thing that's like this is like the only thing that doesn't excite me about this film is the rhetoric that's going to happen around it. Um and it's gonna have to be one of those. I'm like, I'm just gonna decide I'm never reading any comments about anything anymore.
yeah,
Like once the film comes out, like I'm done. I'll read
yeah,
articles that are like written by people like I'll read
yeah.
Brandon's
By
take on it, I'll read your take on
serious
it,
people,
what's
yeah,
yeah, whatever. Because it's just going to be like, oh, Gunn just hates Elon Musk and whatever. Even
yeah,
though this film, the production, like it's always just this like maddening thing where it's just like the production, like what was it? I was hearing Tony Gilroy talk about it's Tony, right? Yeah, Tony Gilroy talk about Andor, and he was just
yeah,
like, or no, maybe it wasn't Tony. It was somebody uh somebody from Andor, I think it was an actor. And it was just like we did not know, like there's no way we could have known like how um this was going to be, how this was going to like when this was
yeah,
thing, because like we started making this like it was 5 or 6 years ago or whatever, like the
yeah,
production length on these type of projects where it was just like, yes, you can maybe make little tweaks and edits and emphasize something a little bit in the editing room, but I mean like in a like a Marvel or in a Warner Brothers, like it's not going to be a fucking thing. It's going to be you deciding. It's always like the like, well, he's punching Nazis and that means he hates us. And it's like, well, no, why do you think that the Nazis are you?
yeah,
So it'll
yeah.
be very sad. I mean, but like, I mean, everyone's already kind of made the jokes around, Lex. I have too much respect for Lex Luthor as a character, um, to compare him to Elon Musk. So it's just like,
Well, it's funny because like ever since they did that book in the '80s, that was the biography that had a parody cover of Art of the
yeah,
Deal.
yeah,
Um, it's been like a non like the idea of Luthor as Trump has always been in the water, especially because in terms of the movies, um, for reasons that I've never understood, all of the movies were about real estate. It's just like I don't know why, but
is there
certainly,
because New York and I mean
yeah,
I mean that's the sad thing, as I really don't think that people still have this, not that people have this understanding of like this. We imagine in 2015 that that all the media was just like, well, we don't really know about this guy, Donald Trump, he's this big media figure, and it's like you go back and like watch I've been mentioned this several times already, but like I've been slowly working my way forward from season one of Law and Order. They make like I'm on like the seventh Donald Trump joke where they talk
yeah,
about him being a dirtbag or a sex
yeah,
fiend or like just making fun of him because basically he hates homeless people, like type of thing. And it's just like this is the like early 90s, and then it was
yeah,
early late 80s, I think. And for some of it, I mean like all of this, all of this media exists, and this idea that we pretend that we didn't know who the guy that is
yeah.
famous for firing people it's just like hilarious to me. But like we get to pretend because that's the only way that we decide that America was okay electing this fucker twice anyway. But
But and on that, I've never liked President Lex, honestly. Like, it there's a lot of like weird little reasons I don't like President Lex, but what it really boils down to is he's already like got unlimited resource. He's always the smartest guy in the room. He's always 10
yeah,
steps ahead of everybody, blah, 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 blah.
yeah,
And so like just giving him like the military to weaponize
yeah.
feels like a hat on a hat.
Yeah.
Um
It also it makes
and
it like less interest. I mean, to me, it makes it less interesting because you have then two dynamics. Like you don't have the government, whether it be police forces, whatever, like government facilities, people, and then the billionaire who is acting and trying to convince people or whatever, and then Superman. And so you have to have those kind of three actor. Otherwise, I don't know. Yeah, I haven't liked that
I think
either. Anytime I've seen plot
I
lines or
think
anything
that's
about
what
that.
they're doing with the Justice League, to be honest with you. Like I suspect like you've seen shots that at least imply that that Superman is working with the Justice League.
Yeah.
But like I do think that when the League shows up, um, they're gonna be uh like a third party. That
Yeah.
Max Lord is like if if um if Lex is Trump, then Max Lord is like Elon Musk in the first term, where
Yeah.
he's just like a billionaire agitator maniac, like
Yeah.
off doing his own thing with no regard for anybody else, not
Mhm.
part of the Luther administration.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, that's just a guess, but I think that what you're talking about, like that division and like having these different pillars, I think they're going to try to recreate that to some extent by having this other group of heroes who I don't think Superman is officially a part of.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
uh, Certainly, it's going to be interesting. I think tomorrow we're going to get the first episodes of Peacemaker season 2,
Oh yeah.
and
Shit.
um, if you watched the teaser for that the other week, Guy Gardner, Hawkgirl, and Max Lord are in that season. So we
Mhm.
should be able to watch some of Peacemaker and get a better sense than we have right now for who those guys are, what their role is in the DC universe, and how they will be interacting with Superman as a character.
Yeah.
I imagine we'll probably also get some appearance by Luthor in that show because if you pay attention to the trailer, it, I mean, it doesn't say outright, but like they use the Kuleshov effect to imply that Rick Flag Sr. is the Secretary of Defense now.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Which is
which,
wild. Which, oh, by the way, perfect Rick Flag, like always.
yeah,
But
oh yeah, I
yeah.
love Grillo. It's funny. I talked to
Yeah.
him right before he started shooting the DC stuff for like one of his direct to streaming indie action movies,
Mhm.
and like he was just like, I loved my character in Marvel. I would love to do it more. They don't want me. James Gunn wants me in every fucking thing he makes.
Yeah.
Definitely, I'll go over to DC.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. No.
it
Which
is
is it's
interesting to
also
note.
yeah.
Oh,
Go
sorry.
ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
This isn't a Grillo thing. This is just a story
Oh
thing.
no,
But like,
no,
it's
but
interesting.
like it's a very quick note. It was just like I was looking at the because I'm like I don't, you know, I was like I actually like have I actually even seen the it's been so long that we haven't
Yeah,
had a I don't know where Christopher Reeve was in his career when he was Superman. Um when he first became Superman. Was he early or was
very
he
early.
like
Yeah, very
very
early.
early?
He was basically an unknown. That's part of why Marlon Brando got more money than God
Yeah.
to like
Yeah. Well,
put his name on the poster.
yeah. Well, I
Um,
mean, I think that you needed to pay him to appear on set at anything, but it's just like I'm looking at
Also,
his
that movie,
yeah.
if you remember, was written by Mario Puzo.
Oh
And
yeah.
so you you had this capacity to immediately after The Godfather be
Yeah.
like from the writer and star of The Godfather, fucking Superman,
Superman.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's just wild like looking at the cast where it's like Nathan Fillion is probably and Frank Grillo are like those would be the, if you're
Most
just going by
household
like
names.
names, like if you're just
Yeah.
like trying to be like an Alan Tudyk is like a third and
Yeah.
Wendell Pierce, and it's just like and
Yeah.
that's
But
it.
like
Like
but Alan is I don't know if you know what Alan is in this movie. He's the voice
yeah,
of one of the Superman
yeah,
robots.
yeah.
So it's
He's
like
just
he's not
always
even
going to be a robot.
um
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, which is he's this is like his third or fourth role in the DC universe. Because
Yeah.
he was the voice of Clayface in
Yeah.
Creature Commandos, and
Yeah.
obviously he was the GI robot. Um, and now he's a Superman robot, and I feel like I might be missing one too. Um,
He's in Star Wars. He's the robot
no,
as
but
well.
I'm
Oh,
just talking
just
about
under
in
gun. I'm
this
sorry. Yeah, yeah,
continuity, like in the DC.
yeah.
Um, but it makes me wonder if like GI Robot is somehow related to the Superman robots, but that's a whole other conversation. Um, the thing I was going to
Yes.
say, but I agree with you. It's really interesting to me that, I mean, like, I think you could argue that Rachel Brosnahan, to a lot of people, is the most famous person in the movie because she has like 7 Emmy nominations
Fair,
or
fair,
whatever.
fair. Yeah, I
But
forget
like,
that. Yeah. Oh yeah,
I've never seen the show, and
she's
so I didn't
also
know.
she's also a person. It's funny because I was just today I saw a clip of her. She was doing a like a meet and greet kind of thing. And like she was this one she was talking about this one woman who was super hyped to meet the marvelous Mrs. Maisel, which is obviously what she's probably the most known for. I would assume
Right,
so.
yeah, over here, yeah.
And I mean, I've seen a very little bit of the show, and I love it, and she's amazing. And but she was just she was telling the story about how she met this like the woman came up and like did the meet and greet, and immediately she's like, you look not only thing she said to her was like, you look nothing like your character. Like,
Yeah,
and it was just like basically you don't sound like her, you don't look like her, and she was
yeah,
very angry that like it didn't meet the expectations. So like she is an actress that like literally she changes her
yeah,
hairstyle or something like that, and I'm like, I don't know who you are. Which
yeah.
because I'm
No,
like I've
that's fair.
watched enough, yeah. So
She's
but
definitely
still, yeah,
got like she's got a really kind of, I don't want to say generic look, but like she's got a really malleable look.
yeah,
Like even within the handful of stills that we've seen for this movie, she looks much different when she's like pantsuit
yeah,
Lois doing
yeah.
the interview versus like the romance scenes that you see
Yeah.
in other parts of the teasers.
Mhm.
Um, but one thing that's interesting, that this is what I was going to say originally when you were talking about Grillo, is
Mhm.
that in the comics when Lex was the then he like did the Trump thing of like stocking his cabinet with like celebrities, like
Yeah.
familiar faces. So like the Secretary of Education was Black Lightning. Um, and the Secretary of Defense wasn't Rick Flag. It was Lois's dad. And so it'll be interesting to see if there's a reason behind that change beyond just we wanted to put Rick Flag in the movie.
Yeah.
Like what, if anything, Sam Lane has to do with the movie.
I mean, I do
Um,
got to say though, it's kind of hilarious with Rick Flag, like just his general look and how much Mike Hegseth, our actual defense secretary, like basically like desperately wants to look like Rick Flag,
yeah,
like
yeah,
look like him. And so it's just like it's going to be to me immediately that was my thought where it's just like, holy shit, is he actually the defense secretary in this? Because that's fucking
yeah,
hilarious because you have this wannabe
yeah.
military GI Joe with some bad tattoos and shit like that. But um
Uh, but
the
so
other one that the other person before if we're moving on is that like I am so fucking happy that Pruitt Taylor Vince, one of those actors
oh
that
yeah,
like you notice immediately he was fucking goddamn fantastic in Constantine and
yeah,
like in everything he's ever done. But like I'm happy that he gets this is one thing I love about Guns. It was just like there's that one actor that like really he does the kind of he's it's like the new Tarantino where it just like
yeah,
pulls a person who always should have gotten credit, except I think Gunn has better taste because if you see the people that he's pulled,
yeah.
like Gunn's actors that he's pulled out of, like not even nothing. I
Right.
mean,
But
Taylor
like,
Vince is
yeah,
a very good working actor. It's not
yeah.
like he
He's a
needed,
no, but at the same time, like having him be Pa Kent delivering the
yeah,
like this that line in the trailer is
yeah.
like that's yeah.
You go
Um,
from fucking Kevin Costner to Pruitt Taylor Vince, which
yeah.
like I love both of them. Like I still love
No,
Kevin Costner's Paquette, but like and and I stand by him walking off to die. Okay, I don't care.
yeah.
But because yes, you go save the dog. Okay.
Um, oh, the thing that's gonna like I think is obvious when you just physically look at Pruitt Taylor Vince is how much he is a stand-in for Gunn's dad. Um,
Ah,
Gunn's dad, who passed away about a year and a half, 2 years, probably a little bit more than that, because he was not in the third Guardians movie, I don't think.
mhm.
But like, um, I think that like you're gonna get a lot of that. Like certainly there's been some talk about the fact that like the Kent's house in this movie is like a renovated double wide trailer.
Yeah.
Um, because as opposed to having like a big farmhouse and like
Yeah.
presumably being relatively well off, his whole thing is like I wanted these people to look more like the like Missouri farmers that I grew up around.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I mean that's something
also
like yeah.
a lot of credit to him for being, I think, the first person ever to actually give Martha Kent a Kansas accent. Like, like,
Yeah.
oh,
But
she's from Kansas. I
yeah.
forgot.
Yeah. I also love because like she's an actress that again like you recognize, but like I
Yeah,
you
and I
just
don't
recognize
remember her name
immediately, but
now.
like I don't I'm very
Yeah, yeah, no, you're
slowly
googling
trying
it.
to find like is she even listed on IMDb? But like I love that because like I really dug oh God, I feel bad. Who played Ma Kent in
Diane Lane.
Snyder's? What's that?
Diane Lane.
Oh yeah, Diane Lane. Like it's like yeah, but it was just like it's one of those. It's like it's Diane Lane. You know,
Yeah,
I mean that's
yeah,
kind of like why you know in great I'm going to do this again in Spider-Man. I always like the older kind of you vaguely recognize the actress kind of
right.
characters playing, and then you go to my God
Martin Sheen and Sally.
well
God,
no I'm sorry
Norm Gray.
Not Spider-Man Aunt my God, my brain is losing it. Jesus Christ,
Like the
Spider-Man's.
MCU man, the MCU Aunt May was Marissa Tomei.
Yeah, Marissa Tomei. Thank you. My God, I'm sorry. My brain was just
No,
losing
no
it.
worries. I was
Yeah.
trying to remember Norma Ray. What's her, Sally Field?
Yes, Sally Field. Yeah.
Because Sally Field and Martin Sheen were the middle ones, and I mean,
Yeah.
it's like it really does. It feels like a very similar evolutionary line where you have
Yeah.
like relatively unknown character actors in the original films,
Yeah.
and then you had Kevin Costner and Diane Lane in the Snyder movies, and
Yeah.
now we're back to like, oh, these are character actors. I recognize their face, but 80% of everybody couldn't tell you their names. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
Um,
Wow. Yeah. Ma Kent is Neva Howell.
oh
And
yeah,
she nah, nothing. I mean, like
I only
somebody
remember the
in
name.
one
I
episode
remember
of The
writing.
Resident, one episode of Woman on the News and Logan Lucky, and then a
Hmm.
bunch of like Ghost of the Ozarks. She has a name character, which I don't even know this film. Oh, that's actually funny because it's actually a film I really wait, is this what I'm thinking is that I was actually kind of looking at recently. Maybe that's why it's actually popping up on like TikTok is like partial out because she's in it. But anyway, you can go ahead, continue. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I was just it's interesting to me because like her the thing of like I cleaned your boots at the end of the trailer.
Oh my God,
Uh
yeah.
it was very cute. It reminded me of Kay Callan, the woman who played Martha on the Dean Cain Terry Hatcher show back in the 90s.
Yeah.
Lois and and I always feel like I have to differentiate because Lois and Clark sound so much like Superman and Lois that if you're not
Yeah.
already a comic book person, like it's
Yeah.
hard to know which one is which. Um,
Yeah.
but so I like all of these little like mini throwbacks and these kind of he certainly has a feel for like it does watching this trailer it feels a lot like a modernized less kind of camp version of the Donner films.
Yeah.
Like you hear the change in his voice when he goes from Clark to Superman, even when he's alone with Lois and it's
Yeah.
entirely performative and nobody else like that's not for anybody. Like that,
Yeah.
she knows. Um and so like I think there's a lot of little stuff like that that's really interesting. I'm curious how it's gonna play out. Um you have any kind of final thoughts on the trailer before? Because I there's one thing I want to kind of talk
The
about because
very
it's a
very
very
quick. I mean, do you? This is something that like I don't know if you know. Like, do we know anything about these like creatures? I mean, this is more a question that because I obviously I don't know any.
like the
They're like the
kaiju.
creature. Yeah, the kaiju that he's fighting,
I don't
or are
think
they
so.
just like
Even
kaiju? Yeah.
even in the toys, because there's been a bunch of like McFarlane toys for the movie
Yeah.
that showed up at a convention recently, and it's
Yeah.
just kaiju. And so I think
Yeah.
it's just like a thing for him to punch at a point in the movie where you need an action beat.
Yeah.
Um,
I the
certainly,
one thing yeah the one thing that like it's I'm I'm it's gonna be interesting on how I think is I'm torn on the colors, like the color of the film, like they're so stark and so bright, but just as like somebody who's like getting into actually in when you film on digital, like you the best thing you can do if you're doing like high-end production stuff is you film on this very flat profile. And like in camera, it looks horrible. It's all brown and it's icky and it's whatever. Um and then you get into Premiere, you get into your editing program, and then you add something called LUTs onto the thing. This is something I'm getting into because I've done news work, and you don't really have time to do this sort of thing. And what it
Right.
looks like, it's like it looks like a LUT, and it looks like, and so like, but I like I'm intrigued by the fact that it's like these stark, it's just Superman colors. It has a comic book feel, it has like, especially it has actually a modern
Yeah.
comic book feel to it, the way that it's like the way that things are colorized in modern comic books, even like versus say even in the, in the late 90s, early 2000s. And so like,
I,
yeah.
I will say, I agree. I think it feels like he's got a little bit of Dick Tracy influence in this.
Mhm.
Um, like if you back when like way back at the start of production when people were taking the first pictures of like Superman and like the newspaper box and all the like the other like all the stuff around Cleveland.
Yeah.
Um, one of the things I noticed is that like all of the extras in the crowd shots looked like everybody was outfitted to look like a comic book character.
Yeah.
Like you had people in very like Riverdale-y kind of clothes where it's like it's you could like look at
That's
this
Thank
group
you.
of people and be like
100%
it's
Riverdale is the
yeah,
vibe.
and
Yeah.
it's just like you look at this group of people and you're like, this could be a guy from 1930 or a guy from 2025, and I
Yeah.
don't know which until he like opens his mouth and we see what his like pop culture accent is. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Um, so I think like it'll. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm overthinking, but like based on those behind the scenes shots, it seems to me like you're getting a little bit of that like Dick Tracy Riverdale kind of like we're going to use color in
Yeah.
a very self-consciously comic booky way. Dare I
Yeah.
say, even Josie and the Pussycats kind of way. But
Ah, is
uh,
it's not an episode of Emerald City Video without. I
I
am
should go
deeply
back and
yeah.
I should go back and see how many if there's ever been episodes that did because of course like the first episode back before it was you and me back when it was like me and the other guys from the video
Yeah.
store
Yeah.
like the first episode we reviewed The Force Awakens and Josie and the Pussycats
Yeah.
and everybody collectively agreed that Josie was the better movie. And like my love for Josie like became like that's how I ended up writing the book is because became like a running joke on this show that
Yeah.
like, middle-aged guy is obsessed with Josie and the Pussycats. Um, but but yeah, I don't know who's shooting this movie. I assume it's there's a DP that Gunn always works with. I always want to say it's David something, but that's a different guy, I think. Hold on.
uh,
Um,
this always makes for fantastic audio. When you're like, hold on, this is us looking at. This is one of my biggest rants about IMDb ever since Amazon bought them is that like they're like, oh, we're gonna have the top actors, and then oh, the people that actually make the fucking film, go fuck yourself. Like, where is the cinematographer? Where is
um,
you have the director and the writer, and then that's it. Like,
so this one's being shot by David Bram, who shot Guardians 3. He's not the guy I was thinking of, who I think has stopped
you mean
shooting movies and is
Henry Bram?
now. Or yeah, Henry. What did I say?
Yeah, I think David or some or Brian. Yeah,
Sorry.
he did. Yeah, he did. It's what wild thing. He did Superman. He did Guardians 3, which makes sense, and then The Instigators and Roadhouse.
Yeah.
Oh, he did The
Also,
Flash as well. So
yeah, yeah. I mean,
and
there's
Suicide
he's done a
Squad.
lot.
Yeah,
It's funny because like in order to go back to like pre-gun,
mhm.
you have to go back to 2016, almost a decade.
Yeah,
And he shot Legend of Tarzan, The Golden Compass, Nanny McPhee.
yeah. No,
So
he's
like clearly,
fantastic. Yeah,
even before he started working with Gunn, who himself loves using color in a really kind of over the top way,
oh, he
Graham
did The
was not
Golden
scared.
Compass,
Yeah, yeah.
the
So
TV. No, the movie.
no, the
Oh,
movie
okay.
version,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
which I always forget that movie was directed. I'm just like looking at it now. I always forget it was directed by Chris Weitz, which is one of the guys who did like About a Boy in American Pie.
Yeah, I know,
And it's
right? The weirdest acting career, or weirdest directing career. And oh, and
it's
don't forget, was it Mr. Did he actually direct it, or was he just um Oh no, he wasn't. But yeah. Well, he also, I mean, he also has the weirdest career. Like he wrote, co-wrote, I think he co-wrote Rogue One. Like,
Oh yeah, he did, and actually also directed New Moon apparently, which I did not know.
hmm,
Um, oh shit, his and I have to watch this movie again. I haven't watched it forever. His one of his first movies was Chuck and Buck apparently.
yeah, I remember that film. Yeah.
I haven't fucking thought of that movie since Emerald City.
Yeah.
Um, because like just so fucking long ago. But like I remember people loved that movie. For me it wasn't for me, but it was like one of our queerest movies in the LGBT section because we actually
Hmm.
had like a pride section in the store.
Yeah.
Um, and sometimes those would be like super popular with the people who only shopped in the pride section but
Hmm.
not connect with anybody else. And Chuck
Yeah.
and Buck I think was one of those that spoke to a lot of people who weren't regular pride renters but just not to me. um and I think it's mostly just because it seemed so mean, um which is a thing you can see with a lot of American Pie too.
Yeah.
Like it's kind
Yeah.
of mean if you really. um
Yeah. I have like a vague memory of it. So, but
I I only have a vague memory of it. I remember that like one of the guys, it was like about this couple, and I think one of the guys was just coming out of the closet for the first time, and then like one of them ends up obsessively stalking the other.
yeah.
So it wasn't like a romantic comedy. It was like a thriller in the vein of like an 80s Brian De Palma movie. Um,
Yeah. I remember the poster. I don't remember that, but yeah.
Yeah, I remember mostly being intrigued by the fact that it was a movie that was very like queer coded, and it was shot. I don't know if it was shot at Wesleyan, or if it was just that they met, like the filmmakers all met at Wesleyan, but it was like
Yeah.
this Christian university that like.
Yeah.
But um, anyway, so if that's, I don't know if you have any more thoughts on the Superman trailer. I do have one thing I want to talk about, which, like I said, feels potentially spoilery, and
Mhm.
so it's speculation. But if it's true, it's going to be a big plot point. So I kind of want to put up a like a buffer
Just
and be like,
I'm just in love with this. I'm sorry. I'm scanning through the trailer just for the parts with Krypton. Just like the last scene where he's laying on the his childhood bed and
Mhm.
the dog is just like, low staring at him and I'm like,
Yeah,
whoa. Oh God. I swear to God. I mean, I know there's no chance in hell the dog dies, but dear God,
no.
I will come for Gun. And I
Um, So yeah, super excited about it. The I'm more excited watching this trailer than I've been prior to now, just because like we didn't really have a sense of the movie in the
yeah.
previous things. It was like we had some kind of clever scenes. I like a lot of the things that kind of are being implied by this trailer, and I'm super interested to see how it plays out. Also, it's making me feel a lot more motivated to sit down on day one and really dig into Peacemaker because,
Yeah.
again, like knowing that you have, and I think they're actually called the Super Buddies in
Mhm.
like they're not the Justice League. Explicitly, they are not the Justice League.
Yeah.
Um, uh, and it's one of those Super Buddies was actually like a name that Booster and Beetle went by in one of the Giffen DeMatteis Justice League miniseries.
Yeah.
So it's like a wink and a nod to the Bwahaha Justice League.
Yeah.
Um, but in any event, like seeing those guys and getting a sense for like what Max Lord's deal is, feels even more important. Uh, it's interesting because like in the Snyderverse and in fact in a lot of adaptations of Superman recently, um, Lex Luthor has been the like ever-present thing, kind of like in the '90s comics when LexCorp was just everywhere, and like if you needed a store, it was like, oh, Lexmart is like the Kmart owned by Lex Luthor, uh,
Mhm.
and at least to some extent in this movie, that's being supplanted by Maxwell Lord.
Yeah.
Because like, the first shot of the trailer, not the first shot, but like there's the shot real early in the trailer of Lois putting down her voice recorder for the interview, and it's a Lord Tech voice recorder.
Yeah. Oh,
Uh,
good catch.
which one of those, well, part of it was because my immediate thought was like, I don't know if I would trust Max Lord to not be like spying on everybody and to like, oh, I bet he knows who Superman is now. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
uh, but in any event, so like made me more excited about the movie, which I already was pretty hyped for, but also like made me feel more urgency about seeing Peacemaker right away
yeah,
because I want to see what Max's deal is and how those characters kind of play into the larger world that we're
yeah.
slowly starting to craft before this movie comes around.
And here am I
Um,
looking at this audio recorder, and I'm like, I want this audio recorder. It looks
I
great.
know, it looks
Like it's super simple. It has the two modules in the top, and like the screen is simple. And I'm like, I'm like, this is always my problem whenever cameras are in movies, and I'm just
yeah,
like,
yeah.
and
Considering
this is
how
one of my biggest hangups. But like, the only thing I'm actually kind of surprised she just doesn't use it. Maybe actually that's her being smart because I was like, every reporter I know, to my frustration, uses their cell phone to record interviews for the most part. Like, especially if it's like, a sit down thing, run and gun, kind of thing. And it drives me nuts because I'm just like, the audio is terrible. What if you ever want to use that audio? Like, but
yeah. Also, like in if you're a Pulitzer Prize winning investigative reporter, which Lois
yeah,
typically is depicted as being,
yeah.
uh, phones are super easy to compromise, just so easy.
Yeah.
Um, and so, um,
And if you're doing this
but yeah,
interview, I would
I
I
think
would certainly not use that. Yeah, but yeah.
yeah, yeah. All right, so I'm gonna put up a hard like spoiler alert here, and again, like I know nothing about like in spite of working in and around entertainment media, like I've not heard much about the plot of the movie.
Mhm.
Um, so this is entirely a guess, but like I think it's a pretty well-founded guess given not only what we see in the trailer, but also Gunn's personal history. And I
Mhm.
wanted to kind of put this out there. There's a shot, in all of the teasers, Superman has been in that like glass cage, and there's a shot in every trailer where you see him punching out of it.
Yeah.
Um, and in this trailer, I saw something which I hadn't seen, and I don't think was in the previous trailers, but definitely was not as obvious, which is Metamorpho, which is Anthony Carrigan's character. You might know him from Gotham and Bill and Ted Face the Music. Um, but
Is he the
he,
is that the like one he is like a half he's like half purple and half green,
yes, yeah,
or I'm just grabbing the screen grab so we have it in the
yeah.
thing, but
So Metamorpho is in the comics, his power is that he can basically manipulate. He can like transmute matter, like he can
Mhm.
make any element to any other element. And I can't remember if he's like Firestorm and that he can like point at something and just turn it into steam. I don't think so. I think with Metamorpho, it's like his own body. Like he's like a shapeshifter kind of. Um,
Mhm.
but so there's a shot of him sitting in the corner of Superman's uh, cell. And my assumption is that he's being used to keep Superman in check because he can create kryptonite like
Yeah.
out of
I
his
mean
body.
he has a green thing in his hand. So,
Yeah. And so my guess, because it feels like a very James Gunn thing to do, think of like Nebula in the Guardians movies.
mhm.
My guess is that Metamorpho is going to be like a morally gray character working for the government, just doing his job, not especially happy about it. And that over the course of whatever time they spend together, he's going to get like won over by Superman's like decency.
Yeah.
And so the beat of him breaking out of the cell is when Metamorpho is like, fuck it, no, this is not cool. Get out of here.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think that like that relationship, like the relationship between Superman and Metamorpho, is going to be really interesting to watch develop over the course of however many scenes they have together. I also think that it's probably like, and again, this could just be Kuleshov and it might be unrelated, but like my guess is that that relationship with Metamorpho is going to mirror the conversation that he has with John Kent about like how your actions determine who you are,
Yeah.
and the things you do are what makes you great. And so like to me, like this is just speculation, but I think it's fairly well-founded speculation. And I think like in story, that relationship is going to turn out to be a really important one to the movie. I can
Yeah.
totally see the moment where Metamorphose switch flips being like a We Are Groot kind of tearjerker moment. Um, and so like I wanted to like mention that because I feel like I can kind of see that on the horizon, it feels like a very James Gunn thing to do. But in
Yeah.
case it turns out to be true, it feels like a big enough beat that I didn't want to put it like right out there in the first five
Yeah.
minutes of
Yeah. That's not the
the
point of
breakdown.
this. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. But it's an idea, and if that is in fact what happens there, I think that's a really cool approach. And again, like mirroring something like the Nebula relationship, how she kind of ingratiates herself into the Guardians between the first and second movie, um, is like, I mean, I'm a sucker for like redemption stories anyway.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know, I think I wrote about this on on one of the various blogs that I've been writing. But there's a one of the things I really loved in Batman v Superman got kind of
Mhm.
echoed, and I don't think in a conscious way because I don't think any of the people making Superman and Lois especially liked Batman Superman, but
Yeah.
like there was a similar beat in the series finale of Superman and Lois. And it's a thing that I really like about Superman, which is this idea that he sees the good in everyone. Um, and so like in Batman v Superman, there's this sliver of a moment where Lex creates Doomsday, and the first thing Doomsday does is like get up and try to kill him immediately, and Superman saves him.
Yeah.
And it's like, you just saved that guy, you know? And
Yeah.
um, there's a very similar beat at the end of Superman and Lois where he's like, spoilers for anybody who cares for the end of Superman and Lois. Um, there's like a flash forward like 30 years, and at the end of the show, he dies. And so you see him like go to his version of heaven, which is like basically the farmhouse, and he like walks through and has one last like interaction with each of the characters from the show, and then finally like ends up with Lois at the end. And his interaction with Lex, I thought was really, really perfect because, like, in the context of the show, it's clear that Lex is not in heaven
Mhm.
because he's Lex, but
Yeah.
he's like sitting at the table, visibly like shell shocked, presumably either from hell or from the fact that he's trapped in a room with Superman and no consequences. Either one
Yeah.
would work.
Mhm.
Um, but like basically, he's just like, I'm sorry, I couldn't control myself. Basically, I can't remember exactly what he said, but he apologizes, and Superman just like touches him on the shoulder and keeps moving. And
Mhm.
it's like a very quiet moment, but I thought it was really well done. Like it's this notion that like Superman's not the kind of person who's going to hold a grudge even 30 years later. However, like you don't really deserve much more than a pat on the shoulder, man. You're fucking Lex Luthor.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Um, and I think that's the kind of stuff that Gunn is really, really good at. And I think redemption is a theme that comes up in his work again and again and again. And I
Yeah.
can totally see where Metamorpho would be the character through which we get the redemption arc in this movie.
Yeah.
Um, Also, it would be really cool if that group of people that he's stuck with in all the glass cages
Mhm.
um, ended up being a version of the Terrifics, which is a team. DC basically did their own version of the Fantastic Four for a while.
Yeah.
Um, and it was Mr. Terrific, who's in the movie, uh, the guy with the fair play leather jacket and the T on his face,
Mhm.
um, uh, Mr. Terrific, Metamorpho, and then a character from the Legion of Superheroes. And I can't even remember who the other two are. Oh, Plastic Man was the other one. It was the Invisible Girl from Legion of Superheroes, Shadowlass, I think. But in any event, like you see, but in addition to Superman, there's other people in other glass cages, and it's like, oh, it'd be kind of cool because like I know James Gunn is a big fan of the Terrifics as a property. Like it would be kind of cool if at the end of this, like part of his redemption is like, no, like it's not just Superman who's getting out. Like it's bullshit to hold all of these people in little glass cages. And so
Yeah.
like they could become some version of the Terrifics and have some story elsewhere in a sequel or wherever.
Mhm.
Um, which again, that's an even more of a like of a stretch and even more of a projection. But it would be a cool way to deal in the redemptive part that I was talking about.
Yeah, I mean, especially considering like he's the fact that finally I always, I mean, we've had this discussion a million times when it came to Flash and the refusal to recognize the the former DC and Marvel like both like refused to kind of recognize the TV and the movie as a separate
Yeah.
thing. I always found that like especially since for the last like 20 years maybe not 20 years, but 10 years, we've had a level of prestige television for comic book
Right.
movie products. And
Yeah.
so it always seemed like I mean, this is like the one like any side character can get their own series or a animated thing or whatever, which obviously we're already seeing. But it's that's something that's like kind of nice because I mean it's like because I mean also they got to compete with Marvel or they got to compete with Disney to some level,
Mhm.
who is I mean they have Andor. They have like basically right now, if there's a Star Wars, unless you're like a version of a Star Wars fan, like there is a Star Wars for you right now. Like, and it is on Disney Plus.
Right. Because
And like you
dude,
can
like,
just sit and watch it. Same thing with like the Marvel stuff, where it's just like, okay, you didn't like the movies that we've been putting out. There's 6 different TV shows that are all on Disney Plus right now that are amazing. Like Daredevil has
and that's
been
the
quite
it's
incredible. Like, yeah,
without getting too far afield on this, but like that's one of the things that I do think is really important about this kind of like slumming it era of the MCU. It's
yeah,
like, yeah, you're not making $1 billion on anything anymore. But at the same time, like all of these things that you're saying, well, there's too many TV shows and it's watering down the brand and blah, 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 blah. I think, and I wrote a whole article about this at Comic Book Club. I'll send you the link later. But I think that, like, to an extent, they boxed themselves in by ending the first 10 years with Endgame.
yeah,
And it gave people an excuse to drop off. And it also created this point of demarcation where everybody can say, like, it hasn't been as good since Endgame. Um,
yeah,
and so, like, I think a lot of these shows are still very good. And I think that, as you point out, like part of the value of the Disney Plus shows is not creating like blockbuster, you can't miss it events that
yeah,
everybody in the world has to watch. It's the fact that like you can tell different kinds of stories, you can diversify your storytelling, you can bring in people who otherwise don't give a shit about a Marvel movie.
yeah.
Like I
But
know
I
a
mean,
bunch of people who told me that like Agatha, because it was like a queer supernatural comedy,
mhm,
um, was like the first Marvel thing they'd watched in years, or the only Marvel thing they had any interest in right now,
yeah,
or whatever. And it's like that doesn't play in a big way to almost anything in the upcoming phase of the like as far
yeah,
as I know, none of those characters are going to be in Avengers Doomsday or whatever. But like
mhm,
that is giving people who are not interested in Captain America 4 and Thunderbolts
yeah,
and into the Marvel universe. And also, once it's on Disney Plus and it's there forever, like it keeps those people coming back to the Marvel landing page and it
yeah,
makes it more likely that they'll try other things out. And I do
yeah,
think there's inherent value to that, even if it's not the most watched show on the platform.
yeah. It's a truly incredible like the Star Wars fans, and I'm picking on Star Wars fans because they're the easiest to pick on when it comes to this type of thing because they make it so fucking obvious, and
Yeah.
you will never not hear it. But it's just like they don't understand this. Like it's a very boomer mentality, which is funny because like I don't know if they wouldn't be boomers for the most part. It'd be like later
Yeah.
Gen X, I guess,
Yeah.
for the most part at least. I mean, obviously there's a lot of boomer Star Wars fans, but um, the fact that like no, you're gonna die one day, and Disney is still going to be around, and
Yeah.
they need people who are going to watch it, and a
Yeah.
lot of those people are queer, are people, not white, basically, let's just say women, and they buy things, and they have always been part of the fan base of Star Wars, just never been the only character that they get to do is basically a chick in a bikini, not to, you
Yeah.
know, not to downplay Princess Leia, or I'm sorry, General Leia. And but it's like I don't know how you can't see that. It was like it does frustrate me because I tried to watch like I seeing the trailer for Skeleton Crew. It looks well made. It has a lot of things that I like. I like watch like 3 episodes and I'm not going to force myself to watch this, but it looks
Right.
good and I understand that it's not for me. And that's it. And
Yeah.
I was just like, I gave up and I haven't really thought about it since. And there's a little part of me that where I'm like, I miss a day when I used to be able to consume all Star Wars content, which there wasn't a lot, even though like, honestly, I haven't. Like I've never read a book.
Yeah.
I haven't watched the animated stuff really. And so like
Yeah.
that's true, but it's like now that it's like in your face, but like, especially with
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
like, with all the Marvel stuff where I'm just like, there's been a handful that I just didn't, Miss Marvel, I tried to get into. It's really well made. It's really well written. It's funny.
Mhm.
The Miss Marvel, the actress is amazing. She's adorable and like
Yeah. She's
plays that role like with an enthusiasm that like I wish I had for anything. But I was just like, I'm like, I'm enjoying it, but I'm like, it really feels like I'm watching it as a job. And then
yeah.
again, is not to downplay anything about it. It's not for
No,
me.
for sure.
And I think that
I
we
mean,
have this kind of
I feel
idea, like, yeah,
I feel similarly about my adventures with Superman, which I don't know if you've seen that. It's on, I think,
mm,
Cartoon Network. Um, it's very charming. It's like an anime inspired Superman, so much so
yeah,
that like he has like you remember in the New 52, um, he had the like Kryptonian armor suit that like acted like Venom, where he could just like
okay,
will it
yeah,
onto his body.
yeah.
Um, he has that in this show. So like when he becomes Superman, he doesn't do the chest rip. He has like a magical girl transformation where he floats up in the air and the costume appears around him.
I love the
Um,
idea of like him doing the Sailor Moon anyway, but
yeah, but it's a very and it's
yeah,
like it's very like anime inspired. It's like
yeah,
the Lois is like has like a pixie cut and is very like she's a main character. She is, she
yeah,
and so it's like I and Jimmy is like a young black guy who I think might be queer coded. I'm not sure. But like I watched a few episodes. They're great. They're really well made. It's charming as hell.
yeah,
Um, but it isn't for me. And so as soon as I started to fall behind, I just like didn't pick it back up
yeah,
because I was just like, I don't know, man, I'm not going to do 4 episodes at a time. And so like,
yeah,
but like I still bought the DVD because the first couple episodes were so good. And I'm like, one of these days it's going to disappear off HBO Max for no good reason.
yeah.
And like
Also, I mean,
my
like
kids will
one of your,
probably,
yeah, exactly. I was about to say,
yeah,
like one of your kids will love it.
yeah,
Um, yeah, no, it kind of sucks because it's like I try, I like literally like this week, I don't know, it's been very weird. Like this week, I just decided where I'm like, I don't need to watch these shows.
yeah,
Like I don't need to watch some of these things like Apple Plus like I just need to get rid of some subscriptions of course but financially but like Apple Plus has the studio and like there's everything about this show. It was like, the way I described Andor was like it was created in a lab for me. And like I got
yeah,
to I think I got to the third episode in, and it was just like it was becoming a uncomfortable comedy. Like Seth Rogen was like basically just really awkward and uncomfortable on the set and everything. And I was like, I don't need to watch this.
yeah.
And it sucks because like there's a couple like TikToks or people that I follow or like Twitter account or Blue Sky accounts now that I follow who are like oh my God, this scene was amazing or whatever. And I'm like, I don't need it. I don't need it. There's
Yeah,
so many movies, not only the physical movies that I have like stacked up that I've like spent too much money on lately. And yeah, but it's just like, yeah, just let it go. But like,
yeah,
I mean, again, like this is why like anyway, I'm super hyped for the trailer. This was supposed to be a
yeah.
30-minute episode
Yeah,
and
that's
but
okay.
yeah, yeah,
It means we
yeah,
have notes for probably tomorrow for the next episode. Like,
exactly, yeah.
all right. Well,
This
thanks everybody for
the
listening to
next
us talk.
yeah, I was
Mostly
gonna
about.
make the joke.
Yeah, yeah.
I was
Tee it
gonna
up. Tee it up.
oh I was gonna make the joke that the next episode is going to be where I'm ranting because we're talking a lot about Sinners. And that was my because the last episode we had we literally recorded it I think on Thursday before Sinners opened.
Yeah,
And then like and we talked a lot about the budgets and and
yeah. The
the
discourse.
the
Yeah,
discourse about money and like he owned it or whatever all this jazz. And then it did 60 million fucking dollars,
yeah.
which is
And
insane.
it's. I think that I saw it's the best original IP,
Yep.
like the best performing original IP at the domestic box office since Coco, the Pixar
Yeah,
movie.
yeah. Which I think
And
I like
then
is an unfair comparison because I'm like, I mean, yes, it's an original idea, product, or whatever,
yeah, yeah,
but it's Pixar. It's just
Yeah,
like it'd be like, oh, it's a Marvel and it's a wholly new created character. It's still Marvel. People are going to show up, but it's like also it's for children and everything like that. I mean, like it's a hard R. Like anyway,
yeah,
we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it
yeah,
on
for
that
sure.
episode. We've already gone far too long about a 3 minute.
But yeah, about a 3 minute trip. But again, like mostly talking about
Yeah, yeah,
the
no,
Superman of it all. But
yeah,
yeah, thanks everybody for listening. We'll be back sooner than usual. So we're gonna go with the new release instead of the 5 days. It's like be here by noon on the third day because you get the
yeah.
2 day rental thing. And always remember to rewind your cassettes.